10 a.m. and 2 p.m., and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m., right here on Newstalk STL. And you can visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
Your business moves fast. PRI Global keeps it moving smarter for almost 30 years, delivering top tech talent to help companies grow stronger, custom applications, simplifying your operations, securing your data, modernizing your business from the cloud up. And with Prismatic, you're going to get real-time insights, automated workflows, people, process, platform. PRI Global delivers all three. PRIglobal.com.
News Talk STL. This hour of the Allman Report brought to you by STL Fenceworks, celebrating 50 years of industry-leading service for fence, deck, and leisure space solutions. Visit stlfenceworks.com.
Good afternoon, everyone, and a happy Fancy Friday to all of you and yours. It's Common Sense Radio. It's the 3 Martini Lunch. Yes, indeed, the Allman Report on News Talk STL. Jamie Allman here, pleased and privileged to be with you. Ashlyn is over there. I finally did present the Stars Trout Dip to Ashlyn and her grandma, so just don't forget it in the fridge there. And we're not one of those companies where people are eating your stuff out of the refrigerator, so you don't have to worry about that at least for the next 4 hours or so. So that's Jeff Allen, everybody. Runs a clean ship around here, people. Come on now. Hey, by the way, my friends, congratulations to the Illini. Man, these guys were great last night. Talking to Ethan, our sales poobah, about what a feat it is to be able to win. Watched the game last night. What a feat it is to be able to win in Houston with all those people in red. It's pretty amazing. And Ethan believes that they probably or might be going all the way. And, of course, Michigan and beyond are another story. And then, of course, the Cardinals, really great vibe yesterday. I'm really happy for them. And I really think that these guys are going to be – I think, there's something to say about that first game. And that first game is sometimes super critical, and it's really important. And sometimes if you lose it, if it's 5-2 or something like that, then that's what. But it's one thing if you lose 7-1 in your opening day. It's not great. And so these guys did a great job. Really happy about them. This Alec Burleson guy, man, he's something else. I think his name is, I can't remember. See, I'm trying to keep up with these guys because it's hard to watch the games. You can't ever find where they are. Anyway, good afternoon, everybody. It's going to be a rockin' little fancy Friday here. And I discovered, because it was in the Post-Dispatch this morning, I discovered yet another reason. Yesterday, I gave you the big speech about how why Democrats are so keen on the open border. You know why they're so cool on just the absolute bald-faced human trafficking of illegal aliens into this country. So I told you the myriad of reasons, obviously for electioneering purposes, for voting purposes, for all the employment purposes, everything else. And then it turns out I'm hearing that there were a bunch of individuals in the trucking industry who are battling regulations over who got CDLs, and we'll follow up on that. But I read an article in the Post-Dispatch this morning, and it is people who are involved in refugee programs and immigration programs and everybody else complaining that St. Louis's population is dwindling because of President Trump's policies that slowed immigration and refugee programs, which gives you an indication. It's funny how there's so much of this that some people in the liberal community don't even realize they're admitting when they talk about it. So the Post does this whole story, and I'll get to it a little later on, but they do this whole story about these people concerned that St. Louis is losing population because we don't have cardboard cutouts in the form of refugees and immigrants who basically, for the most part, just take in resources of the government that is letting them in. And then you realize that, wow, now I know what's happening with a lot of these blue cities. They're fighting the immigration policies because normal people, and I'm not saying that a person from another country is abnormal, but you know what I mean. Normal, average, everyday Americans are moving out of the blue cities. They're moving out of the democratically controlled cities. So the only populace that the Democrats in like St. Louis or Chicago, Minneapolis, and others can depend on would be foreigners who then they could ply with government aid and all the other nonsense. So now we know there's another reason why so many of these blue cities and the Democrats and everybody else are fighting tooth and nail against immigration enforcement and against limits on refugee programs and everything else, because without those programs and without the illegal aliens, they have nothing. They have nobody living in their cities because most normal people are moving out of the cities. And so that was actually proven in the St. Louis Post-Dispatch today, which is really odd. Like nobody, it's funny how they go on and on and on and on and don't realize that they're basically giving up the entire game that is being played by these blue cities in terms of why they're so voraciously against any enforcement of illegal aliens. Also, by the way, a little later on, I'm going to double back on the filibuster thing. You guys know I've talked about this a lot today or this week, and I'm here to tell you, even though I oftentimes am the bearer of bad news for some people, I get it, but in order for us to grow up and grow, we're going to have to admit that America isn't buying that Chuck Schumer is responsible for the TSA lines. I'm sorry to tell you, if we start from the grown-up position that this actually is the Republicans' fault, not the Democrats' fault, then we actually can move forward a little bit. And I will be able to explain that, not in a way that's defending the Democrats, but in a way that's questioning why Republicans aren't stepping up and doing the adult thing and nuking the filibuster. At this point, people who are against nuking the filibuster are absolutely not thinking of the future. The reality is the Democrats have already killed the filibuster, so we might as well go ahead and finish the job. And I'll be able to explain that to you as well down the line. I do want to follow up on what we talked about yesterday. Oh, and also, by the way, they temporarily halted the Jones Act, right? Which was so that we could have ships moving through without U.S. flagging throughout the Strait of Hormuz and everything else. The Jones Act kind of required that the ships be staffed with U.S. citizens, U.S. maritime members, and flagged as the U.S. and everything else. The problem is that it made everything more expensive. It makes everything more expensive. The Jones Act does, as proven by the fact that in order to alleviate the increase in gas prices, we had to temporarily stop the Jones Act. So why don't we just get rid of it altogether if it is causing so much of an increase in prices that you have to temporarily halt it to relieve of gas prices? Why not just get rid of it altogether? So we'll follow up on that as well. Speaking of follow-ups, I want to get to the Mark Wayne Mullen plumbers thing. So Mark Wayne Mullen has been, obviously attacked Jimmy Kimmel, and he tried to correct it all, and it didn't work out very well, and I'll get to that in a second. But the Will Cain, on the Will Cain show, he found this really funny Mark Wayne Mullen plumber ad. Went back in the day when Mark Wayne Muller took over his dad's business. And as a brief commentary about what an amazing person Mark Wayne Mullen is, Mark Wayne Mullen quit school. He was going to college in Missouri, had to quit school when his dad got sick, and take over his dad, the family plumbing business. And Mark Wayne Mullen grew the family plumbing business into one of the largest plumbing businesses in Oklahoma. And this is the guy that all the elites and the Democrats and all these people and people like Jimmy Kimmel are downgrading as not having a college education and just being kind of a plumber. Of course, they did this to Joe the plumber. Can one of you please, Phyllis or somebody who normally I can rely on for things like this, can one of you find out whatever happened to Joe the plumber? I think he might have died. But remember Joe the plumber? That was great. But anyway, they derided him too. I don't know what it is about plumbers. Plumbers are badass. It's really a difficult job. It's a difficult trade. Plumbing is a really difficult trade. Anyway, as speaking of Grasser Electric Home Services, GrasserElectric.com, they do plumbing also. Just want to let you know. So anyway, Will Cain dug up this old video of Mark Wayne Mullen. It's really funny.
How do you clean your garbage disposal? Well, let me show you. Take you a wooden spoon and a pitcher of ice, pour the ice into the garbage disposal, and then use the spoon to help push the ice into the garbage disposal. Turn the water on slightly, and this will clean your garbage disposal very, very nicely.
So all you got to do, this was like a tip. It actually is a pretty good tip. I didn't even know. I actually didn't know that you had to clean your garbage disposal, tell you the truth. So learn something new every day. You guys are probably like, man, how does your garbage disposal smell, Allman? Well, I just thought, gradually, it just kind of cleans itself because you're putting water down there and maybe even put a little, I don't know. But he said, Mark Wayne Mullen said, get you a wooden spoon in the ice and you put that into the garbage disposal, push it down with the wooden spoon. That's the only reason to have the wooden spoon, he said, and run the damn thing, and you clean your garbage disposal. It's that simple. Those kind of little tips and keep in mind, this little tip was basically a commercial, but it wasn't promoting his plumbing business all that much because normally you would just simply. President Trump is dancing up on the balcony there. What's going on over there? I think he was introducing the product of USA. I just, this is why this Trump administration and these kinds of afternoons are so much fun, because especially this time slot, which I love, because you can just look up at the TV and see the President of the United States dancing on the balcony of the White House and not know why, which is really fantastic. I just absolutely love that. And that's makes for a fancy Friday. Yes, indeed. Let's get fancy, Phil. By the way, Phil was talking about yesterday, he was the anniversary of the Van Halen, or the Van Halen album that came out in 1980. And then I added to the Facebook post, I said, yeah, man, I went to the Black Sabbath and Van Halen concert back in 1979. And we were in high school, and we were going just to see Van Halen. We really didn't care much about Black Sabbath. And for some reason, I felt like the people who were there to see Black Sabbath kind of knew that we were not there to see Black Sabbath, because we really felt kind of out of place. I don't know why we felt out of place. Maybe it was the fact that we weren't wearing black lipstick. I don't know. We looked more like Bob Weir from the Grateful Dead than anything else. And so when we went to see the concert, we kind of stayed for about a quarter of it, and then we left because we felt like we needed to kind of pell-mell from the Black Sabbath concert. We're 16-year-old U-City boys. Most of these people were from North County, probably. Like far North County. We had to get out of there, so we felt like we needed to go. So, but those were the days, man. Early days of Van, and then I subsequently named my cat Van Halen. I know this probably is not the original, but you know what I'm talking about. It's the only thing I had here. I named my cat Van Halen, and as innocent as my 16-year-old friends were, I one time, and I saved my cat, okay? So don't be getting on me. But I caught one of my friends taking a bong hit and putting his mouth over Van Halen's face and blowing into the cat's face with pot smoke. It's the last time that ever happened. I stand up for Van Halen, whether it's a kitty or a band, that's all. I know this is the Cabo Wabo dude. I get it, but... All right, coming up, Kimmel tries to clean up this plumber derision, and it doesn't work very well for him. I'll follow up on that, too. This is the Allman Report. It's the 3 Martini Lunch. It's the Common Sense Radio Central here.
This app is absolutely fantastic.
Yes, I listen on my phone.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
It is awesome.
Download the all-new News Talk STL app and listen anytime, anywhere.
I want to share something with you. Cooking a pizza using coal creates an amazing pizza. Only one place to get it, Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield. Of course, they offer a wide variety of pasta, but you just visit the website napolistl.com, dine in or take out, and get ready for patio season. Napoli Brothers Pizza and Pasta in Chesterfield Valley. Try it. You can thank me later.
Want to work with a winner? Follow the multiplier. 279 times growth in total market cap in the past nearly 30 years. 50 times growth in client assets, and ranked the #1 wealth management firm for employee advisor satisfaction by J.D. Power 3 years in a row. Choose a winner. Choose Stifel, where success meets success. Stifel Nicholas and Company Incorporated. Member SIPC and NYSE. For J.D. Power 2025 award information, visit jdpower.com/awards.
John Bill Roofing reminds you we are in the stormy season, and that means if you have even the smallest leak in your roof, you could soon have a much bigger issue. Call the John Bill to make sure that your biggest investment is protected. That call can save you major dollars. If you do get hit during a storm, John Bill has a rapid response team. Call 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF. 1-800-NEW-ROOF, John Bill.
This is Larry Connor's commentary on News Talk STL.
Sunday marks an important date in history, March 29. March 29, 1973, recognized as the day the last American combat troops departed Vietnam. It also marks the date that the last Americans held prisoner in Vietnam arrived home. More than 9 million Americans served during the Vietnam era. That's between November 1st, 1955 and May 15, 1973. More than 58,000 Americans died in that war. Their names are etched in the Veterans Memorial in D.C. Those 58,000 names represent sacrifices for then and now, families that were never started because of the lives lost in Vietnam. In 2017, in his first administration, President Trump signed a law amending the U.S. flag code to encourage flying the colors on March 29 and marking the date as Vietnam War Veterans Recognition Act. That doesn't make up for how some vets were treated when they came home, but it does officially honor all of them. March 29, 1973.
Get more Larry Connors on Larry Connors USA.
Tonight at 6 on News Talk STL. So many ways to listen to News Talk STL.
Join the conversation. All you have to do is say,
Hey Alexa, play News Talk STL.
Welcome to News Talk STL, conservative talk radio for St. Louis.
The Allman Report, sponsored by Window World, 800 Get Windows.
I got put my banana Dixie cups, all flavors and push-ups too. I'm your ice cream man, baby.
This is one of my favorite songs when I was a kid from Van Halen. This is when Eddie Lee Roth was the guy. I know that the Cabo guy's really, he's St. Louisans love him, but I like David Lee Roth better. Anyway, come on, boys! Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Allman Report on News Talk STL. Jamie Allman here, happy to be with you. Ashton over there, it's Common Sense Radio and the 3 Martini Lunch, my friends. Scotty gives us an update on Joe the Plumber, died of pancreatic cancer in 2023. Yeah, I thought he did pass away. But, apparently plumbers, for some reason, have the ire of the news people and the Democrats and the elites and everything else, and it just goes to show you, none of this is new, and their disdain for regular people is so obvious, they just don't even care. And, the news media does it every time around elections when they give you figures from polling of so-called educated people, college-educated people, and non-college educated people. Like there's a difference. In many cases, I would argue that the college-educated people are actually less reliable for polling than the non-college-educated people are, just because of the laundry they go through when they go to college. that launders their brain to lose sight of anything sometimes even remotely principled in American values. I mean, there are a lot of minds that are poisoned. I mean, you talk to a lot of people and their kids go off to college and then they come back for Thanksgiving and they're already changed people. Like, well, what happened to you in 3 months, for crying out loud? Well, apparently the powers that be work pretty rapidly there. I didn't have that problem with any of the kids, and Natalie, who's going to be going off to college next year, I have no worries about Natalie's constitution and her ability to be discerning about things like that. I mean, similarly, I went off to school. I went off to college. I went to Madison, Wisconsin, which is one of the most liberal colleges on the planet. And when I went off to college in Madison, I was not a liberal. I was proud to have been graduated from U City, although I see a lot of my U City friends on Facebook now. I'm like, dudes, really? So anyway, I worked on the newspaper up there, the conservative newspaper up there. I've told you about that already a million times. But so I had no problems up there whatsoever. And then Aiden, when he went off to Arizona State University, wound up, joining Turning Point USA up there in voter drives back in 2024. So now he didn't because ASU's pretty liberal too, or can be, and so that's how that works. All right, Jimmy Kimmel then tries to clean. Well, I don't know whether this is being described as him trying to clean up the whole plumber thing, but he actually didn't clean it up at all. And, in fact, kind of made it worse. So here he is playing the victim, of course.
The president and his pals in the MAGA media are not happy with me right now. Trump even called into...
Actually, plumbers aren't happy with you, Jimmy. I know you're like, well, pals in the media are not happy with me. Probably about half of America isn't happy with you, if not 70% probably, if you add Democrat plumbers,
to complain about me tonight. His apple polishers are all in a tizzy because I made light of the fact that his new head of Homeland Security, Mark Wayne Mullen, before he was a senator, was a plumber, and now he's the head of Homeland Security.
And it's interesting that Jimmy Kimmel also describes us as being in a tizzy. Now, when we talked about this first, yesterday or the day before, I can't remember. When we talked about this the first time, I wasn't even angry. I was more just like, look, now you know why people hate Democrats. And people hate Hollywood and hate the elite. So the tizzy is not mine. The tizzy actually ought to be on the part of people who are Democrats, maybe normal, average, everyday Democrats, who should be saying, Jimmy, shut up. You're killing us here. I know you don't have to care about any of this stuff, but we do. We're trying to reach normal, average, everyday people. And that's going to be the key because we don't have rapey Venezuelans anymore to vote for us. So we need plumbers. So please, Jimmy, shut up. So it's not us in a tizzy. I'm not angry about this at all. I'm more elated that people like Jimmy Kimmel are revealing themselves because, for so long, it's been us trying to convince people, hey, these guys hate you. You know that, right? They actually do hate you. You're middle class. You're union guys. The party and the elites actually kind of hate you. Well, I don't see any evidence of that. It's like, well, now you do, and that's why I'm happy about it.
Not necessarily the kind of resume you might hope for the person in charge of protecting us from terrorism. Of course, they decided to twist that to say it was an insult to plumbers, which it was not. I wouldn't put a plumber in charge of Homeland Security for the same reason I wouldn't call a five-star general to pull a rat out of my toilet, okay? It has not,
I would definitely call a five-star general to pull a rat out of my toilet. Wouldn't you? Wouldn't you, right? Yeah, of course you would. I mean, it's like, I wouldn't call a five-star general to pull a rat out of my toilet. It's like, dude, if a five-star general was available to pull a rat out of my toilet, I would absolutely take him up on it. And by the way, who the hell has rats in their toilet? I I mean, I'm sorry, maybe you do. And oh, well, I've had a rat in my toilet for. I don't know, but who has a rat in their toilet? I mean, this is how out of touch Jimmy Kimmel is. He's been watching, cartoons apparently instead of real life. But yeah, I would definitely have a 5-star general. If you did a poll out there and you asked, how many of you would allow a 5-star general to pull a rat out of your toilet? I bet you it would be like 99% of America would be happy with a 5-star general pulling a rat out of their toilet.
All have our areas of expertise.
Because he'd probably shoot it first, which is even better.
So anyway, they went nuts about this. They went nuts on every channel. But I think that my favorite part of a bit of performative outrage came from a person named Rob Finnerty of Newsmax.
It did not take long for Jimmy Kimmel to mock our new Homeland Security Secretary, Markwayne Mullin, because Mullin was a plumber before he ran for Congress.
Before he was elected to the Senate, Markwayne Mullin was a low-level MMA fighter and a plumber. That's right. We have a plumber protecting us from terrorism now. Trump is going to keep looking.
Do you know how many people in America that offends, including myself? Do you know how many people that offends? Jimmy Kimmel, by the way, who's not funny or handsome or anything, okay? He's just a guy who makes a lot of money.
I mean, Finnerty, that's pretty good. I mean, the fact that they picked out Finnerty from Newsmax he must be. I mean, that's great. He gets up there, and then of course Kimmel comes back on him.
Handsome is on his list. Not funny or handsome. I can barely even get a boner watching this guy. I'm so sorry you were offended, Rob. I didn't know you were such a sensitive snowflake. And by the way, you're a handsome guy. Had I known you were so delicate, I never would have suggested such a terrible thing.
You see, with people like Jimmy...
That's also the problem. I don't even know why Rob decided that he was going to, say he's not handsome because, you're going to get bowled over by that kind of thing. And, because, again, how, and Rob, come on, how Democrats love to sexualize their disagreements with you. I mean, come on.
Kimmel never seemed to understand is that people like Markwayne Mullin are exactly why 15 million illegals came into this country under Joe Biden. They want the American dream, and Markwayne Mullin is living it. And so are you, Jimmy. So cut him some slack.
So that in itself is a victory because I'm playing that from the Jimmy Kimmel show. So that was on the Jimmy Kimmel show. Now, the problem with that is that not many people watch the Jimmy Kimmel show because they're over at Greg Gutfeld's show. But the bottom line is that little snippet there, 15 seconds, did actually make the Jimmy Kimmel show. And Finnerty is absolutely right about that American dream. My goodness gracious. That's why it was so funny to watch people on Twitter and everything else say he's the only person in the U.S. Senate without a college degree. It's like, so what does that say about the fact that you're not in the Senate and you have a college degree and you're pointing out that Markwayne Mullin is actually better than you because he's a U.S. Senator? It's so funny watching these people, and that's why generally, when Jimmy Kimmel calls us, tells people that we're in a tizzy, we're not angry at all. We're glad that people are kind of exposing themselves and being out there because they're just simply making our case. That's all there is to it. Jason's like, sometimes it looks like oh, come on. Okay. All right. All right. I just fell right into that. Phil says, yeah, I'm calling patent plumbing. Of course, man. Of course you are. Kathleen says a low-level MMA fighter still does bare-knuckle fighting. Yeah, exactly. What is a low-level MMA fighter anyway? It's kind of like, what is a low-level NFL player? Because everybody in NFL is in the NFL. If you're in the MMA, you're in the MMA. Not everybody gets into becomes an MMA fighter. If you're in the Major League Baseball, you're not a low-level Major League Baseball player. Maybe you don't start every game, whatever, but once you're in that category, so the bottom line is there's no such thing, in my opinion, as a low-level MMA fighter, but good afternoon, everyone. This is the Allman Report on News Talk STL. Coming up, CNN gets kind of crabby when they learn that President Trump is going to go ahead and pay the TSA agents anyway. And once again, I will make the case that Republicans need to step up, nuke the filibuster, and until that time, it's the Republicans' fault this is all happening. I'll make the case for that without lauding the Democrats, but it's time for some ownership, people. And Fancy Friday is the day for that. It's Common Sense Radio.
Hey, thank you very much for taking my call.
News, analysis, opinion.
Yes, I just want you to know what a breath of fresh air you people are.
101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Wallner home selling team of Berkshire Hathaway. I am so proud to be a member of the Wallner home selling team. And Rodney and Jen, good friends of mine, and then I just became colleagues of theirs, thankfully, and I appreciated them kind of making it happen for me to become a real estate agent. Really enjoy that. Really looking forward to a weekend of showing homes to my clients and possibly getting them into one. Just closed on a home a couple days ago that I got somebody into out there in Newtown. So I'm available for you any time of day. 314-810-SOLD. 314-810-SOLD. As a buyer's agent, I do mostly that. Now, when it comes to selling your home, and I deal with a lot of people clients who are buying a home or whatever, and then so we then list their home. And Rodney and Jen make it a really, really competitive process in terms of getting into the home that you're selling. So they're going to dress it up. They're going to get the drone pictures. They're going to make it all very unique and beautiful, and they want people to fight over it. They usually do. That translates to the best price you're going to get anywhere in the land for your home. And, of course, they also negotiate commission rates that are going to be amenable to you. So it's really cool, great people, tireless team. That's what we are at the Wallner home selling team of Berkshire Hathaway. 314-810-SOLD. That's 314-810-SOLD.
Everyone deserves a safe place to call home. Cedar Oak in High Ridge is a unique ministry providing more than just shelter. They offer hope, support, and a compassionate community for individuals rebuilding their lives. Since 2023, they've helped those facing housing challenges, especially when addiction has been part of their journey. At Cedar Oak, you'll find personalized care, empowerment, and real long-term solutions. Take the next step. Visit cedaroak.org. Cedar Oak, where new beginnings take root.
Hey, it's Susie Moore. If new flooring makes you think hassle, think again, because Michael's Flooring is changing the game. For over 30 years, Michael's has been locally owned and trusted for quality, variety, and amazing service. Whether it's carpet, hardwood, laminate, luxury vinyl, or ceramic tile, their expert team makes installing new floors exciting, not stressful. That's why customers keep coming back. Visit Michael's Flooring at St. Peter's, Starting Prairie, Creve Coeur, or online at igotfloored.com. That's igotfloored.com.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps in the afternoon.
Election day right around the corner. It's on Tuesday, April the 7th. Do you know what's on your ballot? David Stokes sure does, and he'll tell us at 5:20.
Tim Jones and Chris Arps. Weekdays at 4 on News Talk STL. The Allman Report, sponsored by Schneider's True Value.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy Fancy Friday. It's the Allman Report on News Talk STL. Jamie Allman here with you, Ashton over there. It's the 3 Martini lunch. So, yeah, I don't want you to be confused by what I am saying here. about who's at fault for this whole thing regarding the TSA and the DHS and everything else. I'm just telling you that we have to figure out a different way to react to this challenge. And this is on the Republicans and not the Democrats. So we can complain all day long about Chuck Schumer and the Democrat Party. But in the end, whatever party runs the White House is going to be blamed for crap that happens. And I'm not, you can disagree with me on this, but that's fine. It just means that we have to act ahead of the game here. We have to actually act ahead of the game and stop listening to all these salon Republicans on their fainting couches about the institution of the Senate and the filibuster and all that other stuff. It's time to nuke the filibuster. It's the only way we're going to get out of this. And it's going to be us, the Republicans, who are the heroes here. John Thune, the senators, have no excuses not to nuke the filibuster. Here is the reality, and this is the reality. The Democrats have already nuked the filibuster. Do you realize that? You know how they already nuked the filibuster? Because they abused it to shut down the Department of Homeland Security and basically defund the Department of Homeland Security. The reason why the filibuster has lasted as long as it has is because it hasn't been abused. And therefore it has lasted, it's been kind of respected by these harumphers up there in the U.S. Senate and the Capitol. And so it's been respected. Let me give you an example. So let's pretend that during the Biden administration, the minority party, the Republicans, decided they were going to filibuster, get in the way of funding for the FBI. Because the FBI was abusive to President Trump and to Make America Great voters and everything else. So the FBI, there actually was a better case to defund the FBI than there is to defund the Department of Homeland Security. So what did Republicans do? They didn't do anything. They could have done what the Democrats are doing now in order to stall out DHS, but they didn't do it. Now, the argument could be made Republicans probably should have done it because I don't understand how Republicans continue to operate out of fear of what the Democrats are going to do. Well, I don't know. If we do that, the Democrats might do this. If we do that, the Democrats might do this. So what do? You just stand there and you're sitting there in the Senate cucked by a minority party. And that's what happened with the DHS. So the Democrats, though, didn't return the favor after Republicans said, well, we don't want to do that because that would abuse the filibuster, so we don't want to do that right now. So they didn't. So what did the Democrats do? The minute they're the minority party, they basically did the exact same thing Republicans didn't do to the FBI. They did this to DHS. So if they have already effectively killed the filibuster by abusing it, by making it no longer this kind of hoity-toity, harumphy type of Senate institutional tool, they used it as a cudgel for revenge and punishment, and that effectively renders the filibuster with zero credibility. So it's already gone. You nuke the filibuster right now, you go ahead and fund the DHS, and let the end be the end. Because, again, as I'm saying, it's easy for all these people to sit there in the salon and read from the federal book of federal harumphers and tell us how, we can't get rid of the filibuster. But you're not standing in line for 3 hours at TSA. Your lives are not in jeopardy because of the lack of DHS funding. You're just kind of reading the National Review, and that's easy enough for you, I guess. But you're not living a real life. And I'll tell you how the people living the real life are viewing this. It's the Republicans' fault. That's just the way it is. You know why? Because the Republicans are in the White House, and they're the majority party. And people don't understand all of your little mathematics about the 60 votes, and you can't do that because Hamilton said they're not going to. They don't care. They don't care. They're in line for 4 hours, 3 hours at TSA. So let me give you an example, a real life example. I've given this before, but I'm telling you, don't listen to people who tell you, well, we can't really nuke the filibuster. Do it. Act like adults. And more importantly, act like leaders. And act like, for instance, teachers and parents would act like when, I'll give you an example. Let's say that you're tasked with a project. The boss gives you a project. You're tasked with to complete the project. And when it's time to complete the project, the boss says, hey, Wilson, where's the project? You're like, I didn't get it done. Well, why not? Because Bill in the next cubicle was talking to me. What do you think the boss is going to say at that point? Well, whose problem is that? You could have completed the task, told Bill to shut up, but you didn't do it, and now you're using Bill as your excuse for not completing the project. That's how normal people act. The bosses are the people standing in line, for instance, for 4 hours at the TSA. That's how normal people view things. They don't need all your little excuses. You saw that in school, with people not completing their homework or whatever, and blaming it on something. But the teacher, it's your class, it's your grade, it's your school career. The fact that somebody else might have messed it up isn't a big deal, or it's kind of like, hey, Dad, how come our refrigerator is empty? Well, it's because the other guy prevented me from completing the work that I was supposed to get some cash out on, and so blah, blah, blah. And your kids are looking at you like, okay, so why didn't you come up with another way to put food in the refrigerator? That's how people act. That's how normal people act. So all of this fancy, namby-pamby, harumphy, National Review-y bull crap about not nuking the filibuster, normal, average, everyday people don't care. We need to get a more realistic and ballsy approach to electoral politics and reaching the people. They do not care about your processes and the limitations of your processes and they don't care. They care about action. They care about seeing what's going on. They care about all that stuff. I mean, you guys can come up with your own analogies. Look at NCAA basketball, and the coach that coaches a team is blamed for the loss and credited with the win. There might be a couple great players on there, but it's always the coach. Who gets canned when a team loses? They just fired the North Carolina coach. They don't fire the players. They don't get the players off the team. You know how it goes. NFL football, it's always the responsibility of the guy at the top. So President Trump has done his best, obviously, in this time, although I think he can't nuke the filibuster. But he's done his best. He's like, okay, so I'm going to do something temporary at least. I'm going to go ahead and pay the TSA agents, basically myself, essentially. I'm going to go ahead and do that. And, of course, CNN's like, wait a minute, you can't pay them. What's going on here?
For breaking news in our politics lead, President Trump has just posted that he's ordered the Department of Homeland Security to, quote, immediately pay our TSA agents, although it's not entirely clear how that will work or what authority he's utilizing for that order. I want to get
right. We have to find a reason why he can't do that. Because obviously President Trump is disrupting the Democrat plan. And it just goes to show you, this news media, it doesn't matter. He can fund the TSA, whatever. They still won't like it. So, but then again, normal, average, everyday people don't think like people employed by CNN. They want action. And so CNN could sit here and sweat out the details like, we don't know.
Kristen Holmes from the North Lawn of the White House. Kristen, I know this is like just happening. We're trying to figure lots of things out here. What do we actually know right now?
Well, we're asking all the same questions that you are. So I do want to get straight to the Truth Social post because that's where, of course, he put this news as he is wont to do. This is what he wrote. He said, I am using my authorities under the law to protect our great country, as I always will do. Therefore, I am going to sign an order instructing the Secretary of Homeland Security, Mark Wayne Mullen, to immediately pay our TSA agents in order to address this emergency situation and to quickly stop the Democrat chaos at the airports. It's not an easy thing to do, but I'm going to do it. Well,
yeah, look at how pissed off they are over at CNN. It's a tragedy at CNN that this is happening, that the TSA agents are actually going to get paid.
That last line is kind of an understatement here. It's not an easy thing to do. We're not really sure what legal mechanism he has to do this or where this money would come from.
Yeah, well, then shut up, right? We don't really know the legal whatever like that. Well, then, we're certainly not going to depend on Christine on the White House lawn from CNN to tell us where the money's going to come from or what legal ramifications there are.
Remember, the reason why we're in this situation is because they're fighting over funding for DHS that would then fund these agents who are on the ground. So where's the money going to come from?
Yeah, so they're fighting. So, again, the media's not going to give you credit on anything, and they're going to act like it's kind of everybody's fault. We know it's the Democrats' fault in the end, but the solution, complaining and running our mouths about whose fault it is, isn't going to get the job done to get things done. And that's what the Republicans need to do right now. Good afternoon, everyone. It is a fancy Friday. It's the Allman Report on News Talk STL. Jamie Allman here. It's Common Sense Radio. And we've got a rockin' second hour for you here on this fancy Friday. Drink on up.
Jeffco Patriot Radio.
Hey guys, Billy Crow here from Jeffco Patriot Radio. As we follow the important issues facing Jefferson County, if you want to stay informed on Jeffco politics, especially in this all-important midterm election year, make sure to tune in this and every Sunday at high noon here on News Talk STL.
Jeffco Patriot Radio.
If it's a big story in Jefferson County, you'll hear about it on Jeffco Patriot Radio. Sundays at noon on News Talk STL.
Concerned about the condition of your windows driving up your energy bills? I was too. It's only called STL Windows and Doors. Call today for your free in-home estimate and start saving tomorrow. 314-277-5952 or stlwindowsanddoors.com.
Chris Arps here, and after Becky and I leave church on Sunday, we head down the street to Capriotti's to grab a classic meatball sub. And of course, for dessert, I get a giant chocolate chip cookie. I love Capriotti's, and you will too.
On Manchester at McKnight in Rock Hill.
This is the time of the year most of us are checking off our holiday gift list. Identity thieves have lists too, and your personal information might be on that list. Protect your identity with LifeLock. LifeLock monitors hundreds of millions of data points every single second and alerts you to the threats you could miss yourself. If your identity is stolen, your own U.S.-based restoration specialist is going to work to fix it, guaranteed, or your money back. Make this season about joy, not identity theft, with LifeLock. Save up to 40% off your first year at LifeLock.com with the promo code BECK. Terms apply.
An official message from Medicare.
Medicare plans change from one year to the next,
And this year, it's important for you to review your current coverage and compare all your options during Medicare open enrollment. Compare health plans, drug coverage, and costs. See if you can save some money, and don't forget to make sure your drugs are covered. Open enrollment ends December 7th. Visit Medicare.gov or call 1-800-MEDICARE.
Paid for by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNVS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Breaking news at Town Hall. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. Iran state-run media says its nuclear facilities have come under attack just hours after Israel threatened to escalate and expand its campaign. IRNA News reported today that a heavy water plant and a yellow cake production plant were struck, but there is no risk of contamination. John Gamble reports Iran is drafting 12-year-old kids into their military.
We've seen the Iranians increasingly use so-called shoot-and-scoot tactics, where they're hiding missile launchers inside of what look like commercial trucks, or using other sites far within Iran's mountainous regions to hide from the ongoing American and Israeli airstrikes. Now, this isn't to say that Iran doesn't have pressure. Already, we've seen that its all-volunteer Basij force, which is under its paramilitary Revolutionary Guard, is now allowing children as young as 12 to serve in that force.
And it looks like Congress is nearing a compromise that will allow TSA agents to be paid after more than a month. This traveler flying to Florida says he's fed up with the shutdown.
It's a political pawn, and the people are paying the price. That's what I think. So I think it's absolutely, choose my words, idiotic that the Democrats won't pay these people. It's not.
Vice President Vance has held the inaugural meeting of a new anti-fraud task force he's leading to crack down on the misuse of social programs, government money.
What we're going to actually do is force the bureaucracy to take this seriously and work together as political principles to make sure that we stop allowing fraudsters to steal the American people's money. Force. This is not just theft of the American people's money. This is also theft of critical services that the American people rely on.
More at townhall.com.
If you don't care about saving 50% off your wireless bill for the same 5G coverage the big guys are charging a fortune for, maybe you care about keeping jobs in America. Pure Talk does. They've pledged to run their entire operation from this country, including all their customer service. Or maybe you care about our nation's veterans. Pure Talk does. They've donated hundreds of thousands of dollars to America's Warrior Partnership, a fantastic organization working hard to prevent veteran suicide. Or maybe you care about closing America's skills gap. Pure Talk does. They're a proud supporter of MicroWorks. They're helping my foundation train the next generation of skilled workers. Don't get me wrong. Saving money's great, and you'll save plenty with Pure Talk. But if you want to be in business with people who share your values, dial pound 250, say micro, and switch to an American wireless company that actually stands for something. Pure Talk.
This hour of News Talk STL is brought to you by Rodney and Jen Wallner and the entire Wallner home selling team at Berkshire Hathaway. Call them today at 314-810-SOLD. 314-810-SOLD. From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
Those morning showers are long gone, but so is the summer-like heat. It is much cooler out there this afternoon, 40s to low 50s, but the sunshine's breaking out. That helps. Listen to this. Frost advisories and freeze warnings in effect from 1 a.m. to 9 a.m. Saturday across the entire listening area as lows dip into the 20s in the suburbs and rural areas, closer to 30 in St. Louis City and County. Sunny and seasonably cool for Saturday, a high of 57, and it's a warmer 72 on Sunday. From the First Alert 4 Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Matt Chambers.
Hey, it's Vic Porcelli. We're sitting here with our great friend, Chris Cooper. Hi, Chris.
What's going on, Vic? How are you?
I hear you wrote another book. This one's an e-book. Is that right?
The
Business Owner's Playbook for Financial Clarity. So it is a great book for entrepreneurs, a very short guide, give people, business owners, the ability to understand key questions that are important, such as succession planning, legacy planning, getting the IRS out of our pockets, right? Because do you like paying taxes?
I do not.
I don't think anybody likes paying taxes, right? That just makes sense. And then always talking about protection. And then the other thing from a business owner perspective, what is the biggest asset a business owner has? Probably their business itself, right? We need to make sure we understand what the value of that business is as well.
So this new book, I'm sure, is incredibly expensive, right? How much?
No, it's a free resource.
Oh, it's free.
We provide guidance, we provide education because we want to make sure people feel educated and understanding because sometimes you don't know what questions to ask, and we need to make sure we help arm people with information to ask the right question.
Reach out to Chris and Stacy today at SerenityWealthNow.com.
Investment advice offered through Fortis Capital Advisors, LLC.
This year, America turns 250, and News Talk STL is celebrating our nation's semi-quincentennial all year long. News Talk STL, #1 for live and local Soros-free talk, with proud supporters of our 250th birthday celebration. Roman T. Jewelers, Luxury Driver STL, Harry J. Steakhouse, and Snooze Mattress. 250 years strong, and we're just getting started. 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Want a hands-free light that does not strap to your head or held in your mouth? Meet Dex Fingerlight at fingerlight.com. The Kryptonite ring fits any finger, pointing light exactly where you need it. Place decoys, handle gear, get close to roosted gobblers, fast, easy, stealthily. 3 light modes, waterproof, extremely durable. Developed by a father and son's Missouri team, Dex Fingerlight is faster and easier than a headlamp. Use discount code TONY20 for 20% off at fingerlight.com.
News Talk STL.
First thing in the morning and pretty much all day.
Live and local. 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is the Allman Report on News Talk STL. Jamie Allman here, super happy to be with you. It's Common Sense Radio, and it's a fancy little Friday. So, this is, you guys, I mean, this is really weird because, hang on, let me grab my glasses. You know, that's what's great about having Tower of Power available, because if I got to go grab my glasses, the worst thing that happens is you listen to a little more Tower of Power. You know, that's how it goes. Good afternoon, everyone. So the reason I have to do this is the Post-Dispatch is kind of behind a paywall. And I have it on my phone, but on the actual PC, it doesn't show up, so I always have to read from my phone. But this is really interesting because it's the sometimes the liberals will report on something and will not realize that they're basically confirming what we already suspected about why Democrats so fervently wound up involved in human trafficking at the border, and why they were so heavily involved in creating sanctuary cities, and why they were so heavily involved in opening the border, and why they were so heavily involved in not enforcing immigration laws, in letting people out of jail if they held them at all. And so we finally realized that it was because it is a regimented election cultural replacement and reinvigoration of dying Democrat cities plan. And There's no other way to put it. And so now we figured out that of all the reasons I told you the other day about why the Democrat Party and liberal organizations and NGOs and corporations and things were so heavily invested in human trafficking, there's another reason why. And apparently it's for the sole reason of repopulating their dying blue cities. And I usually I could say that as a theory, and I could just talk about that on the radio or whatever, and some people can say, oh, come on, that's just a theory. Do you have any proof? I'm like, well, now I do. This is from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and this is written by Jacob Barker. It was innocently enough as a story. Here's what it says. St. Louis, like much of the country, is feeling the effects of a plunge in international arrivals amid the Trump administration's immigration crackdown, slowing recent gains in regional population growth and portending population loss in coming years. Now, keep in mind, it's interesting how they call the lack of refugees and immigrants and everybody else coming into St. Louis as a not coming into St. Louis anymore as a population loss in coming years is an example of how much they depend on foreigners to replace the people who no longer find blue cities and Democrat-run cities tolerable. St. Louis would be one of them. Chicago would be another one. I mean, you've got Chicago, and this is you guys in Illinois are boned. I'm telling you. I'm sorry, but you are. Pritzker and the mayor there, who just literally 5 days after a woman at Loyola was murdered by a Venezuelan terrorist, illegal alien, Brandon decides he's going to stand in front of City Hall or Public Works or whatever and rename one of the snowplows Abolish ICE. And literally naming a snowplow that they're not going to use until next winter. It's like, man, how do you do that? And then you have Pritzker blaming Trump for the murder. It's unbelievable.
Failures, of course, extend beyond the borders of Illinois. That's their national failures, a failure to have comprehensive immigration reform, a failure of the president to follow his own edict to go after the worst of the worst.
So these guys don't care. But anyway, back to St. Louis. So as you know, St. Louisans, regular St. Louisans, non-foreign St. Louisans, don't live in St. Louis anymore to the degree that they used to, mainly because of Democrat policies, because of crime, because of terrible schools and everything else. So as a Democrat Party, what do you do to resolve the fact that normal people don't want to live in your city anymore? Well, you invite refugees and illegal aliens and all that other stuff in here, and then you pay for their housing, pay for their food, have them use city resources, and then suddenly you've got a population that you didn't have before. Chicago's the same way. This story is confirming it. I don't think they realize it is, but the story is confirming it. The St. Louis region still managed to grow last year, adding a little more than 3,000 residents to bring its estimated population to 2,814,000. This is St. Louis. They're calling it a region, but they're all going to the city of St. Louis. They're not going to Creve Coeur. Come on. Less than half of the 6,700 people who came to the region in 2024, a drop attributed to roughly 5,600 fewer immigrants who moved to St. Louis than the previous year. The figures paint a darkening demographic picture for St. Louis. Yeah. I'm sorry, Jacob, you mean a darkening demographic picture for Democrats, which is why they're outdoing themselves, making fools of themselves, defending rapey Guatemalans and murderous Venezuelans. It's why they're having margaritas with them. They are acting unusually guilty and unusually covetous of this racket they've been running for 5 or 6 years now. And now suddenly even this Post-Dispatch article's totally, completely reaffirming it. The figures paint a darkening demographic picture for St. Louis, where an aging population means more people are dying than being born, and more residents move out than come here from elsewhere in the country. I hasten to kind of rewrite that for them, because it's not the fact that old people are dying that St. Louis is losing population. It's more that young people, first of all, don't want to raise their families in the city of St. Louis, and people who have been living in St. Louis are leaving because it's a crap hole. So and you going to a Cardinals game, you sometimes even risk your life. That's just the reality of it. I love to stand up for the city. I hope for the best for the city. I go down there all the time to the MAC downtown, everything else, but I'm armed. But still, it's not what it used to be. Television stations all moving out. The Post-Dispatch is still in the city of St. Louis, but they're reaffirming that the cities, especially the blue cities, have been largely dependent on illegal migration and refugees and foreigners and people who come here and then immediately hop on public assistance. Let's check in with Speaker Johnson, who is giving us an update on what's going on with the DHS funding. This is live on Capitol Hill.
We had an 18-year-old college student in Chicago, a young lady who was shot in the back by a dangerous criminal who had been released in that sanctuary city and first released at the border under Joe Biden. They opened the border wide for 4 years. Just yesterday, or in the last 36 hours or so, an 83-year-old man's pushed onto the subway tracks and run over by a dangerous criminal illegal alien. This has to stop. The Republicans are not going to be a party to this. They have taken hostage the funding processes of government so that they can impose their radical agenda on the American people, and we can't have any part of it. This gambit that was done last night is a joke. I'm quite convinced that it can't be that every Senate Republican read the language of this bill, and I'm going to just read you one excerpt of it because it's pretty alarming, and it says everything that you need to know in Section 4. This is on page 2 of the bill. This is an actual copy of the bill. That excerpt. It says, quote, "The contents printed under the headings of this bill, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Border Security Operations, under the heading of U.S. Customs and Border Patrol and Protection, shall have no force or effect for purposes of this act, and amounts specified in the final bill under the subheading Border Security Operations and under the heading U.S. Customs and Border Protection and under the headings of U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement in the Department of Homeland Security shall be zero." We're not doing that. And it is unconscionable to me that the Democrats would force some sort of negotiation at 3 o'clock in the morning and try to hoist this upon the American people and then get on their jets and go home for their holiday and pretend and think that we're going to go along with that. So we're going to do something different. We're going to do the responsible thing. Republicans are going to continue to govern and do the right thing morally, legally, and politically. We are going to take care of those who take care of us. The employees in the Department of Homeland Security have gone without funding and without paychecks for 42 days. It's the second longest shutdown in U.S. history, bested only by the longest shutdown in U.S. history that these same radical Democrats hoisted upon the government in the fall of last year. 42 days they've gone without pay. We've had, by some estimates, close to 500 TSA agents who have resigned from their jobs, and who could blame them? They've gone half the fiscal year without a regular paycheck. We can't ask that of anyone. And the lines around the airlines and at the airports have been wrapped around the buildings because of all this turmoil. We are very grateful to have a strong commander-in-chief in the White House who has taken real leadership. President Trump has already ordered by executive order that TSA agents will be paid, and that machinery is in process right now. The Office of Management
Okay, so
Budget
that's
is working
happening,
through that.
and the thing that stands out to me is you have the Speaker of the House, who is a Republican, talking about the Republican-led Senate, talking about the Republican in the White House, talking mostly about Democrats, the minority party. To my point earlier, what is the use of Republicans winning elections, dominating the House, dominating the Senate, dominating the White House, is if all we do is sit around and watch the Democrats hump our country's leg? How often are we going to stand there and be cucked by these demonic people in that party? So, to my point again, when you're the majority party, you're running things and everything else, and you're bitching and moaning about what the minority party is doing to you, that should tell you everything you need to know about the requirement that Americans have that you take action. And that action is nuking the filibuster, funding everything, running roughshod, and burying the Democrats. Because frankly, as a person who busted my rear end to get Republicans elected, I'm not quite sure I feel comfortable watching Republicans stand there and talk about how the Democrats are making their job so difficult. It shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen in a republic. It shouldn't happen in this situation. I realize there's all this balance of power and representation and blah, 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 blah. But this shouldn't be happening. How comfortable are you hearing Mike Johnson talk about how Democrats are all jetting off for the Easter holiday and nothing's been done, except for obviously Trump funding the TSA? But how often are you going to sit there and listen to the Republicans talk about how the dog ate their homework? It's no longer tolerable. Blow up the filibuster and let's get done with it already. One more thing about this St. Louis Post-Dispatch article, which is great. And so this is a quote from Blake Hamilton, the CEO of the International Institute of St. Louis. And he says, international migration has been a source of growth for the region. Of course it has. That was the intention, because the region is run by a bunch of Democrats who are running normal people out of their towns. The ability for international immigration to help sustain other population losses comes fully down to policies enacted at the federal level. So it's not something we can necessarily even control. Yeah, I know, not anymore you can't. But it's something that has a great impact on us and our economy. Well, whose fault is that? That you've got to get a bunch of people off a banana boat to save the economy of your blue states. That you gotta get somebody to climb down from the palm tree and live in your free government offered apartment. You gotta get the person to get up from their mat where they've been eating a bowl of rice with their fingers to come here and live in your free place, because you've lost everybody to cities and states that represent real America. So there you go. That's how it all goes. Good afternoon, everyone. Speaking of common sense, you know the Jones Act? They temporarily paused the Jones Act in order to reduce gas prices because of the pressure there in the Strait of Hormuz. And I'm thinking, okay, so if the Jones Act was the reason why gas prices were high, why don't we just get rid of it altogether? I'll explore that. Coming up, it's Common Sense Radio. It's the Allman Report on News Talk STL.
One thing you should know, what's hip today might I think we should be able to have a civil conversation.
The news and talk that matters to St. Louis.
This conversation has completely made me crazy.
This is complete insanity.
News Talk STL.
Ladies and gentlemen, last night, it was a little blustery last night, and I have to tell you, to a certain degree, because I've got to get Chad and the Hanson's Tree Service people out to the house, because I have seen some branches falling on my front lawn, even with a mild breeze, and that's an indication my trees are like, you need to deadwood and prune me, or a big 500-pound branch is going to come down. You better hope it doesn't come down on you or your cars or your children or whatever. These are talking trees, I hope you know, because I have them. They do exist. I saw them in The Wizard of Oz, so they do talk. Some trees do talk. And these were saying, you need to deadwood and prune me and call Hanson's Tree Service. Here's the website, hansonstree.com. They actually carved it into their trunk. It's like, you guys are weird. But that's okay. So it needs to happen because you don't want this kind of trouble in your yard or for your people. And so deadwooding and pruning is a really cool way. I'll never forget, I'm still haunted by Phil Powers and his dark tale of the giant branch that came down in his yard, and he thought the branch, when he looked up at it, 80 feet up in the air, wasn't so menacing until it was right at his feet, and it was a big honking thing that he couldn't even move himself. Those things are very dangerous, and as we get into the blustery time of year like this, you want to make sure your trees are healthy. Some trees have to come down. They've got financing plans for you to make that happen. So they'll do that for you. Chad's come up with that newfangled plan, and it's a great one. Also, as you're planting your garden and also your bushes and your trees and all that kind of stuff, the mulching is great. They have all kinds of different mulching styles, all kinds of different colors. As I've said before, I prefer the red. I love that. I don't know why, but I do. I know it makes my house look like a McDonald's, but it does. It's actually pretty nice looking mulch. But they also have the other browns and blacks and all kinds of different cuts of the mulch. And then on top of that, they have the Magic Bean, which is a composting mixture that will grow your shrubs and your sunflowers and all your plants in ways that you absolutely never imagined before. So check it all out. Full service, everything you can do ordering online, hansonstree.com. That's hansonstree.com.
Steph's Pizza. You know the name. They're famous for their St. Louis-style pizza. But don't forget their party platters for the holidays. Steph's sandwiches, pasta, and pizza are always big hits at any get-together. And the party platters make it easy. 3 great locations, St. Peter's on Jargaman, in St. Charles on Zumbil, and their newest location in Lake St. Louis at 111 Pondfort Trail. Check them out at stefspizza.com, stefspizza.com. And remember, tonight's a good night for Steph's Pizza.
We've been here 30 years, 30 Christmases in this house, and we have the traditions that most families have.
That's Terry talking about her experience with Rhino Shield ceramic coating.
We did Rhino Shield 14 years ago, and the house still looks the same as the first day. Rhino Shield really worked with me to help me get just the right, nice, soft yellow, and it's 14 years later, and it's the same color.
The main reason Terry called Rhino Shield is because it's backed by its 25-year transferable warranty.
It just sounded wonderful that we could have the house coated with Rhino Shield and not have to worry about it again for 25 years.
Take it from Terry. Give Rhino Shield a call now for a free evaluation. 877-25-RHINO. 877-25-RHINO. Or visit 877-25rhino.com.
There have been neighbors that have come by and said, "Did you just have your house painted?" Because they wanted to know who the contractor was. And I said, "No, it's actually Rhino Shield."
877-25rhino.com.
When insurance companies know you're represented by Onder Law, they know Onder is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice you have Onder Law on your side, a St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Onder wins. Onder, O-N-D-E-R, underlaw.com.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
Wherever I'm at, home, car, wherever.
Download the all-new News Talk STL app.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
Just the convenience on the phone.
Streaming live on the mobile app.
Love the new app.
And listen anytime.
Everywhere.
Anywhere.
The Allman Report, sponsored by Grasser Home Services.
was scared of dentists and the dark. I was scared of pretty girls and starting conversations. All my friends are turning green.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Allman Report on News Talk STL. It is Common Sense Radio, and it's the 3 Martini lunch, my friend. So you ought to be powering down on the 3rd martini. Sounds really good right now, to tell you the truth, even though it's early. It's probably why God's not letting me retire. Because I probably would have a martini at 1:30 in the afternoon. God's like, Allman, you know what? I don't trust you. You need to keep working. I need to keep you busy. Because really, deep down inside, you're a ne'er-do-well. You'll busy yourself with the devil's work. So, yeah. There'll be a time for that. When I'm like 90, I guess. I remember back in the day when I used to, well, let's talk about drinking, shall we? I remember back in the day, like, day drinking was something, like, I would never do. Because, like, for instance, we'd go on vacation or something to the beach or whatever, and I'd see these people out there with their coolers and drinking beer and stuff like that, or their cocktails or whatever. And I was like, man, I wish I could do that, but I've got to do my run at 4:00 in the afternoon, or 4:30 or whatever. So I was always built around my runs. And then I started to realize, you know, I could just run in the morning. It took me a while, but I figured I could just do that. But I didn't really like running in the morning. I really liked running in the afternoon when it was hotter and everything else. And so I realized how much time I lost, how much drinking time I lost by having to build my day around running in the afternoon. So I finally kind of figured that out and everything else. So that's just how it goes. People, this is common sense, don't you think? Listen. Oh, real quickly, because I was reading about this and I felt so bad because, you know, Natalie is had teacher conferences yesterday, and the girls kind of lead their own conference. It's really great, and so so Lily and Natalie both they're really great students, and we're blessed by that. So Natalie is taking, as they say, like AP French. So it's a college French course in high school, taking a lot of those. But this is a college French course. And I remember one time back in the day buying, because she was always enamored with France, always loved France and Paris and all that kind of thing. And so, and I've been to France, South Provence, southern France is beautiful. Paris is beautiful. And the people there are kind of cool. I remember being there, and I wanted to get an espresso to go because I was, on the way to the museum or whatever it was, and I want to get this espresso to go because I'm an American and everything has to be to go, right? So the guy made me sit down and drink the espresso. He would not give it to me. Does that sound familiar, Ashlyn? Yeah, you're like not. She's nodding. Like, yeah, of course. He said, I'm not giving you anything to go. He didn't even have cups to go. So he made me sit down. And I really appreciated that. It was like, yeah, you Americans are, busy. Anyway, beautiful. And I one time remember giving Natalie like a lamp that was like the Eiffel Tower and all this stuff. And so she really is very good at French and someday wants to go to France and see Paris and everything else. And I remember being there 25 years ago And there was already a big contingent of Muslims there. And they had their own little neighborhoods and stuff. And police wouldn't even go in there. And this was 25 years ago. So if you can imagine, since that time, that whole thing has tripled. So instead of actually people just living in certain places isolated, they're now getting elected to public office there. I'm talking about in some of these districts and everything else. So there is a Saint-Denis suburb of Paris that is a city, suburb of Paris, kind of like Crèvecoeur is a suburb of, of St. Louis, whatever. The recently elected mayor, his name is Bali Bagayoko. Go figure. It's not Pierre, right? No, it's Bali Bagayoko. He's like from Mali or whatever. And so now he says that municipal police in Saint-Denis should be disarmed. So he came into power. There was a far left guy who was running, and this guy is so far left. He wound up actually he beat even the far left guy. That's how left this dude is. So Bagayoko campaigned on giving free taxpayer-funded bicycles to every ninth grade student in the city, free back-to-school kits to all children, among other handouts, and then ultimately said, I recently met with all the municipal police officers to express my gratitude. We are going to begin a disarmament process. He was specifically focused on removing the less lethal defense weapons such as tasers from the police, and that for the time being, the police officers will be able to keep their firearms. So this is another level of what happens when you have mass migration and they start to infiltrate the leadership positions, and then they start to make changes even in the way people are upholding the law, and it's really a bad thing. Now, that sounded familiar to you, didn't it? Yeah, of course, Mamdani in New York. So this is happening. It's happening more to a larger level in France. And I still believe that, if you and of course, this is even being called, to a certain degree, he has also made statements about outbreeding the native population, because that's kind of what these people do. That's what their goal is, to basically outbreed white people. And for that matter, black people. I always include black people in my comments about being harmed by mass migration, because for some reason there's this illusion that only white people seemingly are harmed by mass migration, and that completely is not true. That black people, anybody who is basically Native American or have been here a while, is harmed by mass migration. But this guy has talked about outbreeding the native population, and how ultimately there's going to be this situation where they're going to be the dominant ethnicity in these places. And obviously that's how things kind of go sometimes. I get it. With immigrants, period. If you're not, there are a lot of people in this country who are, there was a time there even during the 90s, it was constantly like that. It was 2 kids, that's it. 2 kids, that's it, in every single family. Back in the old days, I grew up as the youngest of 6. I have 5 children, but a lot of people, have 2 and they stop at 2. There are a lot of reasons for that. Sometimes it's just a matter of time. Back in the day, when the moms were staying home and taking care of the children, there were more children. But now with 2 family incomes and the mom having to work and that kind of thing, 2 is about as much as you can handle when you're working, and so is your husband. And that's not, I mean, I don't know whose fault that is, or, what part of all that is, I get it. And so I'm not blaming mothers who work or things like that. It's always a necessity, always can be a necessity, and is important in a lot of different ways. So, it just is the way of the world. I do have to tell you that there was a push a long time ago to basically blast open the nuclear family and get women out of the house. That was where you had the come a long way baby thing, and you had the days of Gloria Steinem. Although Lily is, they're doing a thing at her school because it's an all-girls school, and I really love the fact that it's an all-girls school. I love the fact that there are a lot of mostly female teachers there. I like that for my girls, and so because I love the femininity of the school. So anyway, Lily there's a assignment about women in history or whatever, and one of Lily's studies is of Gloria Steinem, and I told and that I found that out yesterday during the conferences because she hasn't really started it yet, and I did tell her that compared to because I didn't give her my speech about Steinem being part of that thing of blowing up the nuclear family. I didn't get to that yet. I'm going to see what she has to say about it, what she studies. But I did tell her that Gloria Steinem was during my era. She did the Equal Rights Amendment and everything else, which I thought was okay. I mean, my mom, whatever. And so I said, Gloria Steinem looks like Ronald Reagan compared to the nuts feminists of our time now. And I'm talking about like the true man-hating feminists of our time. At least back in Gloria Steinem's day, they were kind of rough and tumble ladies. I get it, but I don't think they were as far left as the kind of breed we have now. I think that crosses over even to Democrats and politicians and other people back in those days in the 70s and the late 60s. People with different ideas were pretty normal. I mean, I'm not saying that it wasn't rough because we had obviously the assassinations and really bad things happening during that time in the Vietnam War and everything. But Gloria Steinem was, that was back in the day. All I'm saying is that, families are smaller now, and that's just the way it is. Whereas these people, some of these, it's easy to go ahead and spit out a bunch of kids when you don't have to actually work or pay for anything, right? I mean, that's kind of the key of the mass migration syndicate is you move into these places and you just take free money, free food, free housing, sometimes even free education, and then you just sit there and have babies, which is easy to do. I mean, I'm sure, and one of the reasons, I'm clearly one of the reasons why people are having smaller families now is pure economics, right, people? It's pure economics. But when you don't have to worry about economics, then it's baby time. And then they have babies, and the babies, they get free stuff for the babies. And free daycare. And Leering centers. Happy Fancy Friday to all of you. It's Common Sense Radio.
Free speech is alive and well in America right here.
It's about time somebody stood up for true American values.
What this country needs is some backbone.
Finally, a president who wants to make real change.
1019 and 94.1 News Talk STL.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Gemini Wealth Group ready to rock and roll for you. The Gemini Wealth Group is really just, I love these guys. And I know, you know, having talked with them, having met with them and everything else, and knowing Jeff Portman and everything else, it just great people. And so when I advise you to go to them for all of your retirement needs and for that almighty permission slip, so to speak. Kristen was in with Jeff a while back and talked about that retirement permission slip. The fact of the matter is there are a lot of people out there who don't want to retire just because they're so used to the paycheck. You know, they're so used to having that paycheck that it's hard for them to kind of break away from the paycheck. And that's obviously human nature, and you get that. But that whole situation now, though, is you're able to do it. You have the resources. You have your portfolio. You have everything else. You just don't have anybody coaching you through making sure that portfolio is growing for you, sometimes even paying you, right, in dividends and everything else, so that you can live off the dividends before you even break into the treasure box later on after 20, 30 years of retirement. And all you need is have somebody plan things for you and work that budget. Here's what you're going to need for this. Here's what you're going to need for that. Here's what you're going to need for that. And if you want to play around, do a little traveling, take care of some kids' educations, whatever it happens to be, this is going to be there. And so this is going to make you comfortable. We're going to do long-term planning for you. You've got 5 minds on your side, the Gemini Wealth Group. So you've got more than 100 years of combined experience in the field of investiture, in the field of maintaining portfolios, all that kind of stuff down the line. So the Gemini Wealth Group is there for you. And on top of that, of course, they're like you. They're proud sponsors of free, common sense, conservative radio, the GeminiWealthGroup.com.
If you love your pet, which I know you do, then they deserve the excellent treatment and care they'll receive at Pacific Animal Hospital in Pacific, Missouri. A full-service veterinarian facility. Originally built and grown by my dad, Dr. Bill Jones, a new generation of wonderful veterinarians and staff at Pacific continue to provide outstanding medical, surgical, dental, boarding, and grooming services for your favorite furry friends. Our family entrusts the care of our pets only to the experienced docs and staff at Pacific Animal Hospital. You should too. Call them today, 636-257-2100, 24/7 at PacificVets.com, PacificVets.com.
Hi, this is Mark Harder with RE/MAX Results, the region's largest RE/MAX real estate brokerage. It is cold outside, but the real estate market is hot. This is a great time to buy or sell a home. Interest rates are also declining, which gives you more buying power. Someday is not a day on the calendar, but today is. Call me at 314-852-8933 for a free custom home buying plan. 314-852-8933.
This is Larry Connors, and my favorite sandwich at Capriati's is a Philly cheesesteak with peppers. Sweet peppers, but sometimes hot peppers. I love Capriati's, and so will you.
Open 9 to 9 daily on Manchester at McKnight in Rock Hill.
JC's Wayback Machine.
This week we recognize the 43rd anniversary of the release of the ZZ Top Eliminator album, along with a surprising St. Louis connection. Plus my review of the new Ryan Gosling movie, Project Hail Mary. And our A-list interview is with Phil Collins, who tells the backstory of the naming of his album, No Jacket Required. All brought to you by the Weber Automotive Group.
It's JC's Wayback Machine. Every Saturday night, 6 to 9. On News Talk STL.
On the next,
Larry Connors, USA.
The story behind the story, March 29, 1973. The last U.S. combat forces left Vietnam.
Larry Connors, USA. Now, weeknights, 6 until 8. On News Talk STL.
The Allman Report. Sponsored by Stars Gourmet Food and Wine Shop.
I brought you something close to me, and left with something new. See through your hair.
Wow, this is pretty cool because I didn't know this was happening. But we're going to the moon again. Did you guys know that? You knew that? Oh. What have I been doing?
We talked about it on Tony's show.
Oh.
Yeah.
Artemis 2. They got the crew out there. I guess they look like they're all fighter pilots, obviously. Ready to go to the moon. Well, that's nice. It kind of seems like, oh, I'm so happy that somebody's going to the moon so we can have some playfulness in the country, you know what I mean? Let's see what they have to say there, Ashley, just really quickly, because I need to get to the Nashville gay predators really quickly, but yeah. Oh, okay. See what they have to say about that. No? All right, forget it. We'll take it later. We'll do it later. So let's get to the Nashville team. And you guys know I really don't have, I mean, you know me. I have like zero problem with gay people. I have zero problem with, I really don't even have, pride nights or pride parades, whatever. I do sometimes. I'm a little confused. And I have no problem with gay marriage and none of that other stuff. But I sometimes do wonder, like, if somebody's really that proud, why do you have to make it such a big deal all the time and devote separate nights to it and all that? I don't really understand that. But I guess, I mean, like, if you're a proud American, wave the flag, and I get that. So I guess technically that's not a big deal. But the Nashville Predators really kind of messed up, I think. So they had the Pride Night, but it wasn't enough that they had the Pride Night. They had a couple of bands, and they had a trans singer or something, and then they had the national anthem sung by a group called the Cowgays. And what's weird is, which is, I guess, catchy to a certain degree, the Cowgays, but this is a song that the Cowgays sing. Apparently, I mean, I don't know. They have they were mocking Jesus at one point. So they're all gay. It's clap your hands for Jesus. I wish I wasn't gay no more. And that's the band singing the national anthem. I mean, I don't know. I mean, kind of like, okay. And then they re-logoed the Predator logo and everything else. And it just got roundly rejected by people. It's weird because why go so far? I mean, why not just kind of have okay, you got that now, baby? Okay. So we're going to take our esteemed astronauts, because they're about to take off. I don't know when they're going to be going. But nonetheless, it's like, again, I think a lot of us, even, I think we're tolerant people. We're normal, average, everyday Americans. We know gay people. We love gay people in our families and things like that. But at some point, you're like, why are you purposely, though, kind of going so far with certain brands and things like that? And it's like sometimes the Nashville Predators really step in it, because a lot of people are hazing them, especially over not really about the logo or anything, but about the people they chose to perform on that night. So they messed up. Let's go to Cape Canaveral, ladies and gentlemen.
Really exciting thing to be a part of. I think our biggest wishes, though, for this, and I do think that as people come online learning about this mission, they are feeling, because of the questions we get and the feedback we get, is that it's for all of humanity. We really, truly are going for all and by all. I'm picking that up from the public, and I hope that it is just more and more impressed upon them that this is everyone's mission.
I love it.
Thank
Well,
you.
that's going to be fun. These people are badasses, too. This is actually at the Kennedy Space Center, and they're really old school. Looks like they're old school, like Chuck Yeager type of pilot types, which is what a lot of astronauts are. And what's great about this, too, is I remember a while back, and I remember having so much mistrust in the way government operates and all that kind of stuff. And I've always said that the only thing I still believe in is the moon landing, but I possibly could be convinced that that didn't happen too. But nonetheless, I pretty much am, having actually watched it on TV, or at least what I thought it was on TV when I was a kid there in 1969. But there were some people who said, well, if we really did land on the moon, how come we haven't been back? And that was always the big argument. Like, how come we haven't been back really since that time, or even, I don't know, or walked on the moon or landed on the moon, whatever. And I think that this is really cool, even if it's from that standpoint, to kind of convince people that, well, we did it now, we'll do it again, and whatever else. And so we'll see how all that goes. Really quickly, because I really wanted to get to this, and I know this is kind of a lot to take in just in the next minute and a half or so. But you do see that the Trump administration is a 108-year-old Jones Act. They waived it to help alleviate the pain at the pump. But the question people are asking, I just read an article about it, was, well, if the Jones Act was a reason why prices of gasoline were higher, why do we still have it? Why is it even necessary? It was supposed to maintain a strong domestic maritime industry. So it requires goods shipped between American ports, I'm reading from this article here, to be transported on vessels that are built, owned, flagged, and crewed by the U.S. There are no other comparably stringent regulations existing for other means of transportation. So it begs the question, if waiving the act will reduce prices at the pump, why are we keeping a statute that raises them in the first place, which is a really great question. Basically it costs like 3 times as much as it would cost without a Jones Act ship. So to be a Jones Act ship, it requires all this stuff that makes the cost of the trip in a Jones Act ship 3 times what it really should be and what it is in other normal ships. So it could, just getting rid of it, that period, we could probably ultimately lower prices of everything. You know what I'm saying? So it was a consideration a while back when we were constantly being threatened, but I don't think this is the case anymore. You guys, Tony Colombo and Company, straight ahead. Ashland, thank you so much. You guys have a wonderful, beautiful, and blessed weekend. Here endeth the 3 Martini Lunch.
Tim Jones here to introduce you to your new favorite roofing company, Corel Roofing. There were 4 major storms last year. Did your roof take a hit? Do you even know? Most homeowner insurance policies require claims to be filed within 1 year, so time's running out for a closer look. At Corel Roofing Company, you get a local roofing specialist who will advocate for you every step of the way. Give yourself peace of mind. Schedule your roof inspection today with Corel Roofing at CorelRoofingCo.com. That's